What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. Matt Bove and Brian Baldinger filling in for Sal Capaccio, Odyssey NFL Insider, host of the Best Football Show. Baldy, thank you for joining me. Much appreciated.
Matt, it's a pleasure, man. That was a lot of fun. I was on a plane, Matt, coming back from announcing the Vikings Arizona game. Flight got delayed. I'm sitting on a Delta plane. I'm watching this. I'm watching the snow game of the year, and I'm just going. These guys look like they're having more fun than any adult should have. I'm watching, Sean and Josh, doing snow angels at the end of the game, and I'm thinking those Bill fans are having a blast out there.
Is that just is the difference that the Bills looked like they were having fun and the 49ers looked like they were miserable? That has to play into it somehow, right?
Oh, I mean, Kyle Shanahan, could he look like he looked like he would sign up for anything? Like,
Yeah.
give me a year of solitaire, like in a cell with prison food. I'll take that over what he was watching. Meanwhile, Josh Allen can't. I mean, all right, I'm already here. I don't want the ball. You take it, Josh. It's just, it was just they were just having a lot of fun. But that's the culture that they have right there right now. I mean, it's just and the offensive line. I mean, I can't say enough. Talk and what they're doing right now, and how well they're playing up front.
I mean, when you're on, we have to ask you about the offensive line. And I was going to basically go down the line. I saw your breakdown of the Dawkins, just what he did in the game and really what he's done all season. How impressive has he been? He's always been a really good player, but it feels like now he's taken it to another level.
Well, I feel like I'm pretty good friends with Aaron Cromer. I've known him a long time. I have a lot of respect for him. Kind of followed his career: Chicago, New Orleans, L.A., Buffalo. He always does a great job. But I remember going out to Rochester this summer, and I saw him and was talking to him, and I was just out there hanging out with David Edwards and McGovern and Doc and the whole group, Osiris and it's a special group. Like, I think they basically line up and played almost every snap this year, and like, they're very well coached, they're very durable, they play really well together. They could do anything you need them to do. You got to protect for a long time. They're good at that. They got their dogs up front, Doc obviously, but Spencer. I mean, they got some guys. I mean, watching, Cyborg against Chris Jones a couple of weeks ago. I mean, it was impressive what he did. And so, every week, whatever the challenge is, it kind of starts right there with those guys.
They lose this year. Mitch Morse, they let him walk. Connor McGovern moves over. David Edwards, who's won a Super Bowl, slides into McGovern's old spot. And I think there were a lot of questions here about how they would gel together. That's a big loss. Mitch Morse is a really good player.
Yeah.
For the entire season, though, it feels like they've gotten even better. How is that possible?
Well, they got bigger. They got bigger. With Edwards in there, and nothing against Mitch, but he was older and he's smaller. Like, Connor's much bigger guy. I think they're bigger up front. Cyborg's in his second year now, so he's not surprised by a whole lot. They've got experience everywhere. Everybody's played a lot of football. Doc's in his own world over there. He's just the left tackle, but if you need a guy just to go start a fight, he'll start the fight. Like, if you got to take the punch to somebody, he's going to do it. He loves that role. So they kind of got their roles, but they have, I think it's it's combined coaching with Chrome's, and then it's just the camaraderie that they have together. And then I think Josh kind of bridges everything. He's the glue, the super glue, to everything. Like, as he's having fun, he loves hanging out with those guys, walking on the field with those guys, going to check in with them. So I think it's just a tremendous chemistry all the way around.
They give Dawkins an extension before the year. McGovern's already on a contract that goes past this season, but then they also give a big extension to Spencer Brown. And Spencer Brown has been a player who's been a bit polarizing because it started really well, then it dipped for a bit, but now it feels like it's bounced up to a level that we haven't seen before. How has he kind of solidified the right side of that line that really helps make this thing go?
Well, I think, you get a lot with experience and trust. And, Josh can bail anybody out, when things don't go right, but you don't see as many penalties, from him right now. And now, he's pulling and running the way Doc is in some of these traps that they run. And so I think the offense really changed last year, obviously when Joe took over, and, it's kind of still a run first offense, although they throw it a little bit more than they run it right now, but not by much. It's 50-50. And so I think the style of offense whether it's Davis or Cooks who's running right now. Like it fits him, I think, a lot better than being the passing offense that they were for the first half of the season last year when everybody was struggling in that capacity.
One of the things I think a lot of people here are excited about is that the offense has different ways that they can win games now. And a lot of that dates back to when Joe Brady got here. But how important is that for a team, especially as we're getting now to a point when we're talking about playoffs and matchups against some of the really elite teams in the league?
Well, I think it's really vital because you never know. When you get to the playoffs and it's sudden death, you just don't know. I mean, you could play a game, let's say against the Chargers. The Chargers want to take the air out of the football. They might try to limit you to 8 possessions. And so the game's going to be different than if you get 12 or 13 possessions. So, then you're like, okay, we have to maximize this. Or if they're just a great run defense, let's say you're Baltimore and, you pride yourself in run defense or whatever. You might have to throw it more against a weakened secondary. So it's good to get games where you have to be able to do both. I mean, and obviously, look, they could get more snow games. We've seen in the playoffs last year. You could get cold weather, snow games, play in the snow. I saw San Francisco slipping all over the place on Sunday. I didn't see anybody from Buffalo slipping. I don't know. Like, nobody practices in the snow. Everybody goes indoors when it snows. But, Buffalo didn't have any problem with their traction or their footage or anything else. So I think it's good to be exposed to everything and having to play in different conditions, having to throw it when you have to come from behind, having to run it when you got a lead and you want to melt the clock. Like, it's good to get some familiarity in all those situations.
We're talking about the Bills on December 3rd, and we already know they're going to the playoffs because they've clinched the division, which is absurd because last year they didn't clinch the division until the last game of the regular season against the Dolphins. But now the focus here in Buffalo has shifted. Is this the team? Is this team good enough? Let me ask you that. How good is this team, and is this team good enough to do what they've always been trying to do these last couple of years?
Oh, they're good enough. They're good enough. I mean, they've got a system, defensively that, Taylor Rapp has really adjusted to, and some of the new faces there. He's playing great football. Obviously, the punch out of juice there at the goal line. But I think the one hidden thing in this whole team is what Von Miller is going to do when you get to the postseason. Like, I just think he's saving it all up. Like, he's still playing. He's got his role, but he knows how to close out a game. And Rousseau stepped up, and Oliver, these guys have all stepped up. But I feel like Von is made for the postseason. And I feel like as much as he's out there a little bit right now, like, he knows when it's sudden death and when it's time to step up. So I think that's part. Obviously, Davis has been unbelievable. He's been a great, number 2 to James, at the running game. Josh is taking care of the football. Like, I think they can make a run. They got to go to LA. They got to go to Detroit. You're going to get tested by some good quarterbacks, good offenses. So that's good. That's good for them these next 2 weeks. You'll find out a lot more. But I think this team is built for the postseason. I think they're built for running it. They just have to, you can talk about it right now, but everything prepares you for that moment. Now, the number 1 seed is still in play, and you would love to get a bye and have home field throughout. I think it makes a difference. If you got to play Kansas City or Baltimore, it'd be a whole lot better to play it, in Buffalo than to play it, in one of those places.
What are the concerns from your vantage point of, well, if they don't do it, maybe this would be why? Where are the weaknesses in their game?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know that you can point out anything. They're not giving up explosive plays. They've been very good defensively right now. They're taking the ball away, like all that stuff. I guess, you always worry, honestly, about the kicking game. You just do. Field goals, 2-point conversions, return game turnovers. You saw, San Francisco put it on the ground the other day, in a kickoff return. I think you always kind of are worried about special teams and the role that they play, because in a lot of these games, the 7-game win streak, it's not really come into play, but you never want to lose a game because of special teams. But it happens all the time. We've seen all these field goals blocked at the end of games, and you just see kickoff returns for touchdowns, Dallas, Washington. You just see games lost because of special teams. That's always my concern, because it doesn't get talked about much until it happens. And then you go, it's too late, and so that'd be always something I wanted to stay on top of.
I mean, in Buffalo, we had the 13-second fiasco that turned into a fiasco because of a lot of things. But if they would have just handled it better on the special team side, then we're probably not having the conversation. And then last year in the playoffs, Tyler Bass misses a kick that would have tied it with a minute and a half left. Now, Kansas City probably goes down the field and scores, but still, you never know what happens. So that's definitely, a very valid point. What have you thought of Sean McDermott this year? Because Sean McDermott is somebody in Buffalo that a lot of people like to criticize because of the shortcomings in the playoffs. But I think this year has been, some really serious growth in showing that he is one of the better coaches in the league.
Well, I mean, you lose Diggs. Nobody knew what the passing game was going to look like. Are you going to be better through subtraction? And they had the Hamlin situation last year, and you just stuff you got to go that you can't plan for. The guy's just a rock. He believes in his system, in this defensive system, plug and play. I mean, you lose Milano early in the year, he's back, but I mean, you lose these guys. Last year they're playing AJ Klein in a playoff game, off the street.
Yeah,
you can't do much about that, but you believe in what you do, and this defense, like I was on a podcast in San Francisco today, and they're like, well, why can't you get explosive plays? I'm like, well, nobody gets explosive plays against Buffalo. Those safeties are sitting back there. You got to run them out of it. So they give up some runs to San Francisco, but nothing to get alarmed about. You want to drop the safety down and take care of it. You can, but you just don't want the ball going over your head. So I just think the system is in place that it's really important to build the camaraderie in the locker room. I think he's awesome at that, and really building the locker room around the players and really enabling them to take charge of it. Like he's got the leadership role up top. He's got to coach the coaches. He's got to coach the team, but at the same time, he wants to empower the players. And I think he has a great way of doing that, where they're in a position to make these plays. And, he's going to play his best players. You can draft Kaiir Elam in the first round, but you might want to play a 6th-round pick out of Villanova who played in the Hula Bowl instead because he's a better player.
Yeah.
And so you got to make those kind of decisions, and you coach the next guy up. I just think he's got such a consistency. I mean, this is 5 straight years now. I mean, we saw the Patriots do this. We saw the Chiefs do this. They're on, they're all you're seeing in the AFC East is turnover and change, trying to get to the stable force that McDermott is.
7 out of 8 years now going to the playoffs after a 17-year playoff drought is pretty nuts. That's the position we're here in Buffalo. But obviously the organization has come a super long way. Another reason they've come a long way, of course, is Josh Allen. Is he the MVP?
So it changes for me almost weekly, but watching Sunday night's game, he's the MVP. Like, it's hard not to give it to him, honestly. I mean, there's worthy candidates: Lamar, Jared Goff, Saquon. You could throw a bunch of names up there, but the Bills have just won 7 in a row. He's the leader. He's like, when the games are big, Kansas City, national TV against San Francisco, who's the biggest player out there? It's Josh, in the biggest spotlight. And he keeps showing up and keeps making these plays that nobody else really can make. Nobody can throw the ball through a snowstorm like he can. Nobody can, it looks like he's got different, snowshoes on than anybody else on Sunday. He's and nobody's bringing more fun to the game. We're in the entertainment industry. Nobody's bringing more fun and entertainment to these games than Josh Allen. And so I think on every level, like, he's got to be your MVP right now.
And I mean, that's the thing too, that I know it shouldn't be a factor, but it is. The Chiefs game, it's Allen against Mahomes, and he makes the run, and then Nance makes the call, the play of the year. And then the next time he plays a game, he's diving towards the pylon on a lateral play. Like, how many other guys can do that? There just really aren't guys built like him.
No, but it's the talent, and then it's just the freelance ability of just, honestly, he's just that backyard kid. That was backyard football, what Amari did to him. But nobody else, maybe Mahomes could make that play, maybe. I don't know how many guys would even be thinking about that. But that's just the backyard. So there's this structure that all these quarterbacks are put in, and, this is the progression and this is the read. And if there's this coverage, go here. And they're programmed so much and they're over programmed. And then you lose the ability just to play backyard football. And sometimes, like, you'd be surprised. I'm not, maybe you're not, Matt, but like, I talk to these players all the time. Like, oh, yeah, that was a mistake. Yeah, we blew that call. And you're like, oh, nobody knows that. But sometimes you just have to improvise, in these situations. The touchdown run up the middle is improvisation. There's Fred Warner there. He's got to beat Fred to the end zone. Yeah. Like, he improvised there, and I don't know if anybody, him and Mahomes and Lamar, like, they're 1, 2, and 3 on any given day who can improvise better. But the key is, and this is what's different about Josh now versus maybe Josh the first 4 or 5 years, is he's much better taking care of the football than he's been in those improvisational plays.
Who is the guy in the Bills that isn't getting enough credit, maybe from outside of Buffalo, that has played a big factor into the success they've had up to this point?
Well, Taron Johnson is an unbelievable player. Like, he like that position, that nickel position that he plays. The best of all time was Charles Woodson. Like, he's the best nickel back ever when he went to Green Bay. And we might never see anybody with that combination of skills. And I'm not comparing Taron to but that's what you need. You need a guy who's just going to crack heads in the run game, going to beat every wide receiver's block. You're going to just shut down the run game. But yet, when you got to make these plays in the passing game, you got to make the splash plays. Like, he's everywhere sometimes. I don't think he gets enough credit from anybody in this business.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. Last one for me. What do you need to see from the Bills in the last 5 regular season games? We know they're going to the playoffs, but what do they have to do in this next month to kind of get, help get them to where they're trying to go?
Well, look, they're going to go to Detroit. Detroit plays this Thursday, all right, in Green Bay. If they win, they're looking at maybe the number 1 seed in the NFC. If they lose, but regardless, they're going to see Detroit after 10 days, and they can put up a 30 spot or 40 on anybody. That could be a preview to a Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Like, at least on paper, in December, it could look like that. Like, that's, to me, is they got some AFC East games, which they're going to be favored in heavily, coming up. But honestly, that's the game. That's where you really want to measure yourself against the Lions in Detroit. They've got 10 days to get rested. So to me, that's the one game where you can really see, all right, let's really measure ourselves and get ready for the postseason. This is going to say a lot about who we are.
Can I ask you a weird question? Just one last thing that's like a little bit more hypothetical.
Mm-hmm.
If that was the Super Bowl, if it was Bills Lions in the Super Bowl, knowing that they both got there, you think back to the game that's being played in a couple weeks. Would you rather be the team that won or lost?
It's a good hypothetical. Well, it's sort of like Buffalo and Kansas City. To Kansas, if you ask that to Kansas City, they're like, oh, we want to win the postseason. We don't care about it. But you can say that, looking backwards in the rearview mirror. But, everybody wants to be the underdog and play the role of the underdog.
Yeah.
So you'd much rather probably have lost that game and rematch in the Super Bowl. Just because everybody's going to make you the underdog because of the head-to-head that you got beat in.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it. Tell everyone where they can listen to you, watch you. I know you're all over the place.
Yeah, they can find me on all the social media sites at Baldy NFL, whether it's Facebook or Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, whatever. And then you can find me on the NFL Network, and you can listen to me every Sunday on national radio and Compass Media Networks. I'll be in Atlanta, Minnesota this weekend.
Any trips to Buffalo anytime soon?
I know I've got week 16. I'm in Washington, Philly and Washington. I don't know if the games week 17 or 18 are going to be big enough.
Yeah.
Just because of the situation that Buffalo's in right now.
Yeah.
I'd love to go at least for a playoff game, for sure.
When do you come back ever? I know that your brother played here for a long time. You ever back in the area or?
Well, I've done a lot of games up there over the years.
Yeah.
So I always get back for a lot of games, although I haven't gotten back this year. But I was up in Rochester this summer, to see the Bills in training camp. So, I got to spend some time around the team.
You just got to get up one time at least next year because that's the last year of the current stadium before they go across the street.
Yeah, I got to see what the development looks like. I'll miss it's to me. It's still the Ralph. I don't you
Always
give
the
it
Ralph forever and always.
Ralph for me. So I love playing there. My brother was in Super Bowls as a member of that team. Marv Levy is a god to me. So I'm always deep down a Bills Mafia fan.
Love it. Brian Baldinger, thank you so much for joining us. Much
Yep,
appreciated.
yep. My pleasure, Matt. You bet.